In this part of our course, we'll practice using the intersect option, textures and transparency. This photo will serve us as a base for the graphic we'll make. Click on the photo, then go to Arrange and click on Lock Object. Press F2 to zoom in on the photo. We'll now create this first rolling dice. Switch to the ellipse tool and draw a circle. Let's change the outline colour of this figure. Click with the right mouse button on the yellow colour. Go to Arrange menu and click on Convert to Curves. Modify the path of the figure so it fits the dice. Let's deactivate the Snap to Objects option. Go to View menu, then Snap to and click on Snap to Objects. If you have any problems with this path, switch to Wireframe View. This way it will be more visible and easier to modify. Switch to the ellipse tool and draw a circle around the side of the dice. Try to make it go outside the base figure. Select this new circle, go to Arrange menu and click on Convert to Curves. Now switch to the Shape tool. Make sure that this new figure goes outside the base figure. It's important for the later actions. Modify and correct this new path to make it fit the image. We need this path to go outside because we'll use it in the intersect option on these figures. Switch to the ellipse tool and create a circle for the top side of the dice. So the photo is just a reference for the figure we're creating. Rotate and scale the circle until it fits this part. Go to Arrange menu and click on Convert to Curves. Switch to Shape tool and correct this path. Remember that a part of it has to go outside the base figure. Try to make this path as smooth as you can. This way it'll look better afterwards. Switch to the ellipse tool again and draw the last element. Go to Arrange menu and click on Convert to Curves. Now switch to Shape tool. Make this path just as the shadow which covers the side of the dice. Select this node and convert it to a cusp node. Remember that when we convert the circle to curves, all of its nodes are automatically switched to symmetrical nodes. Correct this path until it covers the part of the dice. Let's add a node here. Move this line segment and add another node here. Let's move this one here. Remember that this path has to go outside the base of the figure. Well, the first part of the figure is now ready. Let's move this one here. Switch back to normal mode. Press F3 to zoom out. Switch to Pick tool, select all paths, duplicate them and move the copies to the right. Don't worry about the photo, it's locked, so it won't get in the way when we have to try to select these paths. Select the base circle and change its outline colour to red. Change the fill colour of the smaller figures to grey. Well, let's select the base figure and change its fill colour to yellow. Select this figure on the right and change its colour to blue. Change the fill colour of the bottom one to green and the top one to red. Click on the intersect icon. This option will leave both these figures and create a new figure from the overlapping part that's selected elements. Click on the intersect icon. Set a dark blue colour for the new figure. Move this old blue figure to the side. So this figure now ideally fits the base figure. That's why we need to create all these paths slightly outside the base. Select the green figure, hold Shift and click on the yellow figure. Click on the intersect icon. Go to Arrange menu, then Order and click on to Front of Layer. As you can see, this new figure took the colour of the base. Let's change its fill colour to pink. Take the green figure and move it to the side. Well, this red part is too small. Switch to the Shape tool and correct this path. Well, let's say it now looks okay. All these actions require patience, but the ending effect is great. Select the red figure, hold Shift and click on the yellow figure. Click on the intersect icon. Let's change the colour of this new figure. Go to Arrange menu, then Order, then click on to Front of Page. Now move the red figure to the side. This part of the dice is now ready. Switch to Pick tool and click on the yellow figure. Select all these smaller paths and change their fill colour to none. Select the yellow figure and change its colour to grey. So now we have a base figure and 3 paths which perfectly fit it. We've created all these paths from circles. Let's move on. We'll now talk about what is and how to use the texture fill. Press Shift and F4. Switch to the rectangle tool and draw a random rectangle. Change its fill colour to yellow. Go to Fill Tool icon menu and click on Texture Fill. From this drop-down list we can choose from one of the texture libraries. These libraries contain a specific amount of different textures which we can select from the list. Let's choose this one and click OK. As you can see, a figure was filled with the texture we've selected. Click on the plus icon. Go to Fill Tool icon and click on Texture Fill. We can create a new texture by editing one of the existing textures. Let's now try to do this. Let's change this texture. Down here we have the Preview button, which will refresh this window. On the right we have texture options which we can change. This particular texture has only 3, but there are textures which have much more options. We can also browse through this list by pressing the up or the arrow keys on the keyboard. Let's go back to the texture called Liver. When the locks are active, clicking the Preview button doesn't change anything. Let's now deactivate the first lock. Now, click on the Preview button. As you can see, each time we click this button, the program changes the settings into a random value. Let's now unlock the second lock. Now both texture and the softness options will change randomly each time we press the Preview button. So when the texture changes into something we like, we can save it by clicking on the plus icon. Let's try it. Click the plus icon. Change the texture name to Liver 1. This bottom section, we can choose the library in which we want to save our texture. Let's select Samples 9 and click OK. So now we've created a new texture by modifying an existing one and saved it in one of the libraries. Let's now unlock this red colour. Click on the Preview button. As you can see, the colour now changes along with the texture and the softness settings. Let's remember about one very important thing. Textures are always in RGB. The texture you're seeing here is constructed out of one tile. So in reality, the texture you're seeing in Preview is stretched to fit this figure. We can, however, change that. Click on the Options button placed at the bottom of the Texture Fill options window. In this little window we can change some of the texture settings. The bitmap resolution is now set to the default value of 300 dpi. But don't think that texture is a bitmap. It's a graphic constructed out of complex mathematical equations. So these two values are just default numbers for these options. Make sure that the resolution is set to 300 dpi. Choose the maximal title width and click OK. Let's now talk about one more thing connected with tiles. Click on the Tiling button to access the tiles options. Here we can change some of the tile settings. As you can see, the texture is now as big as a rectangle. Click Cancel to close this window. In the Texture Fill window, click OK. We can specify the amount of tiles from which the texture is constructed. When the texture has a lot of grain, the tiles won't be visible, but when it's less complex, we might see them. Let's switch to Interactive Fill tool. As you can see, direction lines appeared on our texture. In reality, it's a selection of one tile. We can now drag resize or rotate it to change the texture look. Let's change this texture so we can see it better. Switch to the Texture Fill tool. Let's choose the leopard texture and click OK. Now switch to Interactive Fill tool. Downscale this tile. As you can see, we can clearly see the structure made from many tiles. Let's choose some other texture. Go to Texture Fill window. Let's choose Symbol texture and click OK. Well, this one is perfect. We can see the tiles clearly and we can analyse how the structure reacts to editing the main tile. So we can edit the tiles with the Interactive Fill tool. Let's now switch to the Pick tool and change the fill of this figure to yellow. Now go back to Texture Fill, choose a random texture and click OK. Now the tile is stretched to fit the figure. Let's also remember that all these textures are in RGB colour mode. Let's have a little experiment. Go to Texture Fill window, expand the Shade Colour drop down list and click on More. Let's now switch to the Models tab. Expand this drop down list and select CMYK and click OK. Close the window by clicking OK. These actions actually didn't change anything. Switching to another palette can change the colours in print, but we need to do it differently to look at this effect. Go to Bitmaps menu, then click on Convert to Bitmap. Set the colour mode to CMYK and then click OK. As you can see, the colours were altered slightly. We can now decide whether or not we like this colour. Press Shift and F4. I wanted to talk about this so you wouldn't have an unpleasant surprise when you print these textures. Delete this rectangle. Select a dice figure and go to Texture Fill tool. We'll now choose a texture for the dice. Select Styles Library and click on Texture Blend Vertical. Click OK to apply this texture. As you can see, the figure was filled with the texture we've just selected. Select the path on the right and change its fill colour to white. Do the same thing with the top path. We'll now make these paths transparent. Switch to Transparency tool and draw a transparency direction line. Go to Property bar and switch to Uniform Transparency Type. We can now change the strength of the transparency. Let's set it to 71 and press Enter. Now do the same thing with the path on the left. Select the path, draw a transparency, change the type to Uniform and set the strength to 71. Let's now edit the bottom path. Select it and change its fill colour to black. Of course, we can set the colour to transparent figures. Although the colour is now different, the transparency is still visible. Select the bottom path, switch to Transparency tool and draw a direction line. In this case, we'll leave the transparency mode at linear. Switch to Pick tool, select all paths and delete their outline. To do that, click with the right mouse button on the first icon in the Colours palette. We still have to create one more thing. Zoom out and look at the reference figures that I've prepared before. When we move these paths away, we can see that this figure is constructed in the same way. Let's now create these dots. Move one dot to the side and upscale it to see how it's made. As you can see, this object is constructed out of two elements. It's made from a circle and a hoop. Why a hoop? It's because we can't set transparency for an outline. Let's now try to create a dot like this. Switch to the Ellipse tool, hold Ctrl and draw a proportional circle. We'll duplicate this circle. Go to Edit menu and click on Copy. Now go to Edit menu and click on Paste. Let's now downscale the figure. Hold Shift and downscale the figure. Shift button will keep the figure's centre point in one place. Switch to Pick tool and duplicate the smaller circle. Select both figures and set a random fill for them. Now click on the Combine icon. This option merged the two objects into one and deleted the overlapping part. Select this hoop and change its fill colour. Now select the circle and also set its fill colour to black. This figure will now fit perfectly in the hoop we've just made. Select both objects and align them horizontally and vertically. Select the circle, now select the hoop, switch to Transparency tool and draw a transparency direction line. This transparency is nothing more than a mask automatically applied to our figure. We can't create another colour stop like on a gradient direction line. When we click twice, the line will disappear. Press Ctrl Z, click on the black colour and drag it over the top of the last colour stop. Black symbolises the complete transparency and white symbolises visibility. So when we drag the white colour here, the visibility will reappear. When we drag the grey colour there, it'll only be partially visible. Let's drag the black colour here and move the colour stop. As you can see, the visible area disappears when we move this colour stop. You can also add here a grey colour. This time the transparency will fade into partial visibility and to full visibility. Click on the circle, switch to Transparency tool and draw a direction line. Let's now drag the black colour and drop it in the middle of the direction line. Let's now switch the transparency mode to radial. Well, the middle colour stop was deleted. We need to create it again. Drag the black colour stop and drop it in the middle of the direction line. It's fast and easy, it just requires some patience and practice. Let's now drag this direction line to the right. So adding colour stops is strange, but with some practice you'll learn it really fast. Switch to Pick tool, select both figures and go to Arrange menu, then click on Group. Let's now downscale the figure. We'll now just duplicate this figure and place the copies on the dice. To make the copies look different, we can rotate or scale them. Duplicate this figure 2 more times. Now, select all 3 figures, duplicate them, and place the copies on the left. Let's now try to align them. Go to Align and Distribute palette, and then align them to the left. Let's also distribute them evenly. Do the same thing with the first row. Select 3 dots, align them, and distribute them. Let's now align these dots together. Before we do that, we need to group both rows. Select the first row, go to Arrange menu and click on Group. Select the second row, go to Arrange menu and click on Group. Select both groups and align them. Well, it's up to us how we place these dots on the dice. Just make them look natural. Of course, we can scale the dot or rotate it before we copy it. Duplicate this dot 3 times and place the copies over the top path. It's all about creativity. When we give it some time, it'll look much better. Just place it in one row. Well, our figure is ready. Press F3 to zoom out. So that's how we can build a 3D dice in CorelDraw.